Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down and this is my guitar. If you've just joined us, we have just started, this is the second episode in a series looking at Jim Hall's version of All the Things You Are, the incredible archetypal Jerome Kern jazz standard. This is a jazz standard that a lot of jazz students who are just starting out learn to play, and in my opinion, I don't think you can ever get to the bottom of all of the various different beautiful ways that you can play over this tune. In my book, this is a great approach to start with just because it's super melodic, super creative. It references an awful lot of the fundamental jazz theory that you need in order to be able to tackle this tune effectively, but also leaves room for simplicity, freedom, and just outright craziness at points. So last week we looked at the head, so if you've just stumbled on my channel and you've clicked on this video, then you might want to go back and look at the first lesson before having a look at this one today. So today we're going to take a look at his first go around of the chorus. Before we do that, I want to say a big thanks to all of my patrons. There's been a few of you who've signed up this week. I'm just going to grab the list. So thanks to David, Raina, Martin, Peter, Bob, and you left a lovely comment about a video, and I'm really sorry I probably can't pronounce your name properly. So maybe send me a message with how I phonetically say it, but I think it's Anne Coiveau. So thanks so much for all of your support, everyone. Thanks to all the people who like, subscribe, and watch all the videos. I really, really appreciate all of your support. If you want to do a one-off thanks for the lesson, then there's a link to buy me a coffee below. But if you want to support in more of an ongoing way, then Patreon is the place to go to do that. On that platform, you'll get the backing track that I've made with Jamie Sefton and Joe Harris, especially for this series. You'll get the full transcription of the track itself that we're looking at and all of the other series that we've been doing on this channel, and then also all of the exercise packs and everything. And occasionally there's some extras on there too. The link for the Patreon channel is on the screen here, www.patreon.com/extra guitar lessons. Let's get on with the tune. Let's look at the first 8 bars. So I'm going to have my notes here today because there's an awful lot that I want to share with you guys and I don't want to forget anything. So to start off with, let's look at the basic harmony of this tune. So it does move around quite a bit. There's a few modulations where he kind of suggests different keys and stuff. When I say he, I'm talking about Jerome Kern, the guy who wrote the tune. The chords that are used here are F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, and A flat major 7. And technically they're known as 6 minor, 2 minor, 5 dominant, and then 1 major. Now, if that terminology is foreign to you, you might want to find a video that unpacks it in a little bit more detail. But on a basic level, taking the A flat major scale, you can build a chord off of every single note in that scale by stacking thirds. A major third, then a minor third, then another major third if you want to make it a 7th chord. And what you end up with is a major 7th, a minor 7th, another minor 7th, a major 7th, a dominant 7th, a minor 7th, and then a half diminished chord, and then back to your root. And those chords are A flat major 7, B flat minor 7, C minor 7, D flat major 7, E flat 7, F minor 7, G half diminished 7th, and A major 7 again at the top. If we number each of those chords, then we get 1 major, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 7, 6 minor 7, 7 half diminished, and then the root, which is the major 7 again. And the chords we're using here are 6 minor 7, 2 minor 7, 5 7, and 1 major 7. So hopefully that clears up some of the terminology that I'm using in this video. Going back to the first 8 bars, we've got F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7 and A flat major 7 for the first 4 bars, and then he moves to D flat major 7, which is your 4 chord, and then he switches very quickly to D minor 7, G7 flat 13, which is what I've written on here, but you could just see it as a G7, and then C major 7. Now hopefully that looks familiar to you as a 2-5-1 in the key of C major. Hopefully. So he's kind of moved to a different key momentarily. It's not a proper modulation. Generally, a modulation is when you've moved into a new tonal center, so a new key, for more than 4 bars. Here it's only for 3 bars, and then we move elsewhere again. Now, there are many ways of tackling a chord sequence like this where we are changing 1 chord each bar. One of the ways that you can do this is to adopt a scalic approach over the top of the chords and use a different modal scale for each chord, or referencing the chord tones, or a mixture of both. What Jim is doing here is he's picked an idea and he's expanding on this idea, and he's staying in a general tonal area of A flat. So the notes that he starts off with are F and B flat. Okay, now in terms of F minor 7, he's not using chord tones. I mean, yeah, he's using the F, but hasn't got the 3rd in there or the 7th, so it's not necessarily describing the chord. And if we look at that in terms of A flat there, he's using the F and the B flat, which is the 6th and the 2nd note in reference to A flat. So again, it doesn't necessarily make sense if we look at it in terms of scalically or in terms of chord tones. So what exactly is he doing here? What I think he's doing here is he's expanding on that bluesy idea that he started with, okay, just before the chorus starts. And that's a bluesy idea that's derived from the F minor pentatonic scale. Remember that F minor is related to A flat because it's the relative minor. And these 2 notes, B flat and F, I think that he's running with that idea and he is expanding that idea. So if we notice the first bar, F and B flat, and he slides back into the F again, goes to the A flat and to the B flat, adding an extra note, expanding. Same notes, but he's added more rhythmic subdivisions in to expand the idea further. And then he uses exactly the same rhythm but changes to the notes to suggest an A flat 9 over the top of the A flat major 7. Now, why would he do that? The reason why is because he's trying to make the A flat into a secondary dominant going to D flat major. Okay, so A flat 7, D flat major 7. Quite clever, really. But he's expanding on that idea. When he moves into the D flat, it's a similar rhythm. Okay, and he even carries that idea over into the next bar when there's a D minor over the top of it. So you can see that what Jim is valuing more is melody and the idea and expanding the idea rather than leaning too much on the chord tones. Now, you may well disagree with me here, but this is one thing that I've noticed across quite a lot of Jim's playing, and it's one thing that my guitar teacher, who was a massive fan of Jim Hall, taught me, was to make sure that you value the idea rather than constantly getting bogged down with the theory of chord tones and scales all of the time. They are very good and you do need them, but the idea and the melody is key. And if you've got a good melody and the melody is strong and the rhythm is strong, that will carry over even if it clashes slightly with the chords underneath. And I think you'll agree with me here that even though he doesn't specifically reference the chord tones explicitly for the first 3 bars and the first 3 chords, it still works and it still sounds good. So here's a little exercise for how you can get started with this. Basically what I've done is I've taken an idea around the triad of A flat and then I've started expanding on that idea as we move through. And then here I've moved on a little bit more to referencing a couple of chord tones just so that you can get used to expanding the idea but using maybe 1 or 2 chord tones like Jim does when he reaches that A flat in the 4th bar of his chorus. Zooming in firmly on those last 3 bars over the top of the D minor 7, G7 flat 13, C major 7. Over the top of that, so we can see that Jim carries on that idea of the D flat, which he's used over the top of the D flat chord previous to this, and it's going to clash ever so slightly with the D minor 7 underneath. But the reason why this is okay is because it references something called the tritone substitution. I do have a really cool video on tritone substitution, so if you want to unpack that further, go and take a look at that. It's in the Kenny Burrell series. Essentially what he is doing here is he's using a tritone substitution, or suggesting that, over the top of the D minor. So he's getting this kind of sound, which is perfectly fine and creates an awful lot of tension, which resolves beautifully. So the line that he plays, it's got an awful lot of tension in there, so he references the D flat, and then references the G7 with that B note there, which is the third of G7, and then resolves it by moving into the note of E, which is the third of C. And then at the very end there, chromatic rising up to the 5th, which references the next 8 bars, which we'll look at now. So the chords that we've got here: C minor 7, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7, A flat major 7, A minor 7, D7, G major 7. Now, what on earth is going on here? Here, the tune has moved momentarily into the key of E flat major. So it's modulated into the key of E flat major. So we've got here the 6 chord, C minor 7, the 2 chord, F minor 7, B flat 7, which is the 5 chord, and E flat major 7, which is the 1 chord, and then A flat major 7, which is the 4 chord. So it's mirroring what happened earlier. And then just like earlier, it modulates into another key, G major, momentarily for 3 bars. So you've got A minor 7, D7, G major 7, which should ring alarm bells that is a 2-5-1 into G. Now in terms of what Jim plays over the top of this, he's expanding that idea again. He's using the same kind of idea, the same amount of notes roughly, and almost exactly the same rhythm. Okay, so same idea, he's expanding that rhythm again. So here, he's referencing more the chord tones here, so 5th, flat 7, and the tonic of C there, the C minor 7, and then very clearly an F minor triad there. So over the B flat 7, he's referencing the 5th, the flat 7, and then actually moving to the minor 7, which you could see as a sharp 9 going to the E flat major 7. Now over the E flat major 7, he's doing a similar thing to what he did earlier in bar 4 over the top of the A flat, where he's making it a secondary dominant. So he's converting the E flat major 7 into a dominant chord so that it moves better towards A flat major 7. So here, so there he's got the sliding into the tonic, and then he's got a flat 7 there, suggesting a dominant 7th moving into A flat major 7, which he references with the 3rd, major 7th, and the 5th. Super, super clever. He's expanded that idea. He's run with that idea from bar 1 and bar 2, and he's expanded it all the way down to bar 9, okay, with the A flat major 7. Hopefully you followed so far. Now, when he moves to the A minor 7, D7, G major 7, which is that short modulation into the key of G here, he's still kind of referencing the rhythm and the melody again. Okay, and I think we're hearing more of the melody from the actual head here as well. Okay, now here, the interesting thing that I want to draw on is the fact that he's kind of ignoring the 2 chord completely. He's ignoring that A minor 7 chord, and he's just playing ideas from D. So D, D, and then C, C. there. So that's really, I mean, that's all that is just referencing the D chord there, I think. Obviously C, yes, is in A minor 7, but he's got a D and a C together, which just shouts D7 here. This is something that's quite commonly used over jazz standards when you've got a 2-5 or two chords that are very close together, that are linked together. You might just want to go with one of them, okay, rather than trying to reference both at high speed. Otherwise, the melody disappears completely because all it becomes is a technical workout. So what you might want to do is just choose one or the other of the chords and focus on that as the source of your melody. So here Jim uses the D. Here's an exercise for where we can do that. Now, what I've chosen to do here is to do exactly the same as Jim, and I've just focused on D, and I've used some altered scale ideas over the top of the A minor 7 and the D7, but the altered scale is the D altered scale. So that's what I've used there as my language, and I've run with that over the top of the A minor 7. Even though it clashes, I'm just ignoring it because it's going past so fast that I don't really need to think about it. Now let's take a look at the B section and what he plays over the top of that. Okay, so chordal-wise over the top of this, we're still in G, so 2-5-1 in G, and then we've got a minor 2-5, or what we think is a minor 2-5, going to E major 7, and then a 5-chord C7 sharp 9 leading us back into F minor 7 again. So we've got 2-5-1 in G, and then what seems like a minor 2-5, which might go to E minor 7, but what Jerome Kern does here is plays an E major 7 instead, and then we go to C7 sharp 9. Now what Jim does over the top of this is he creates a whole lot of dissonance using groups of 2. So now I think this is where John Scofield has taken some ideas from. So here we've got a D and a D flat over the top of the A minor, okay? Again, this isn't necessarily him referencing the chords. What he's aiming for is that note there at the end, which is the resolution onto the 3rd of the G major 7 chord. So, moving down gradually, and then moving into the 3rd of the G major 7. It's absolute genius. So try some of that in your own playing, where basically you start somewhere but you have more of an idea of where you want to get to. It doesn't necessarily matter where you start, it's where you're aiming to. So Jim's using some chromatic ideas to get to that note of B, the 3rd of G. So the idea basically here is not so much referencing all of the chords, specifically, but more moving to G. What is beautiful about it is the fact that as he moves down through those two, which don't really have any relation to A minor, when he gets to this group here, the C and the D do reference the D7 chord, which is great, and then he resolves it to G there. Over the last 2 bars, he's playing a rising G major 7 chord, ending on a note that references the next 2-5-1, the F sharp minor 7, B7. Now over the next 4 bars, the F sharp minor 7, B flat 7, E major 7 there. What Jim is doing over the top of that is he's continuing that idea of 2-note groupings. Instead of descending like he did in the previous 4 bars, he's now ascending, which is a great compositional tool which he's using in real time in improvisation. So he's using the 11th and the 9th from the B, and then the 5th and the 3rd from the B, the flat 13 or sharp 5 from the B, and then resolving it to the G sharp, which is the 3rd of E. And then he's holding that and giving a really nice descending idea from the major 7th down to the 6th, which is really, really nice. And then to finish it off, he's got this really cool chromatic idea which moves from the G down through to the E flat. So G, G sharp, sharp 5 over the top of the C7 chord, which gives an altered idea, then moving chromatically down to the flat 7 of F minor 7. over the top of the last lot of bars here, he's mostly kind of using A flat major pentatonic. It starts off with that flat 7, which references the chord of F minor 7 there. Gives another kind of allude to it with another chromatic idea going from the C chromatically down to a B flat, referencing the next chord of B flat minor 7. And then he kind of moves into some ideas using the A flat major pentatonic scale. And that's this scale here. So the idea that he plays. Okay, really cool idea. It kind of almost gives, it's got some kind of big band flavour to it with that accent on beat 4. Now, all he's basically doing there is just using A flat as his vocabulary there, as his language. And he even uses that over the top of the D flat. He plays an A flat major triad over the top of the D flat major 7, which gives us a lovely D flat major 9 kind of idea. Now, over the top of the next two chords, the D flat minor 6, going to C minor 7. What Jim is doing, I love this part of the tune. I love that chord. It's just such an amazing part of the tune. Jerome Kern obviously is a genius. Over the top of these two chords, again, he's not really thinking in C minor so much. Over the top of that chord there, he's kind of just thinking D flat minor 6 mostly over the top of both of it. So he's referencing some notes over the top of all of that. And then he moves on to B diminished 7th. Now over the top of this, he's using a B whole half diminished scale as his language there, which is this scale. And then he's referencing, he's really kind of running with that idea of that da 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 ba ba da 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 da. So he's moving this idea up. I know my singing's terrible, but he's moving this idea of this descending few notes move and then jumping up to a higher note. He's moving that idea into each chord and running with that idea. It's just that, again, that idea of just expanding whatever idea it is you come up with on there. And he's really running with that right from the D minor 6. Just altering the rhythm slightly. Just using the shell voicing over the top of the B flat minor 7 there, landing on the sharp 9 of E flat 7, using some ideas from the E flat altered scale there, which is this scale. And then ending with some ideas that are diatonic to A flat. And then basically there he's referencing a C7 sharp 9 chord. Okay, phew, that is a lot of information over the top of that. I would love to go into more detail with some of that stuff there, but we just simply don't have time. So if you've got any questions on some of this stuff, then pop it in the comments below or send me a message on Patreon or a private message over on Instagram, which is at Exeter Guitar Lessons. Or you can email me at info@exeterguitarlessons. So, thanks so much for following along. If you got this far, I think the biggest thing we can take away from this is not the scales, not the chord tones, but just the idea of expanding whatever idea it is that you come up with. Obviously, Jim is choosing ideas that are within the tonal area, but he is expanding on them rather than being beholden to all of the chord tones. So I think that is the biggest takeaway that you can take away from this. Obviously, you can take some of the language that he uses from some of the scales as well, but I do think that the biggest lesson to be learnt from this first chorus is the idea of taking an idea and running with it. My guitar teacher used to say that Jim improvised like he was planting a garden. You wouldn't just go down to your local garden centre, buy a whole load of plants and just chuck them in. You probably put one or two in, stand back, admire what they look like, see whether they work together, and then add some more in over time. And then eventually you come up with something beautiful rather than something which is chaotic and unplanned. So I hope that analogy helps you, and I'll see you next week as we look at his second chorus. Bye.